So Lady Di couldn't make it, huh?
No, Lady Di actually broke her shoulder about a week ago, leaving a board meeting.
Oh, with those heels. That's
Must
good.
have been in the heels.
Is she okay? No, really?
So far, so good.
All right.
That's what we hear.
So, okay, you start out, obviously, showing yourself out on the outermost cape.
Yes, as a 7-year-old.
7-year-old.
Just a couple of years ago.
So from day one, do you remember this radio station and listening to it?
Well, my first time being there was 64, and the station started really in 82, or 80, 81, 82. So I didn't hear it back then, but I've heard it since it started, definitely.
Yeah, and wasn't it Lady Di for you that you first heard?
Yeah, so Lady Di, the whole reason I got interested in making this film was we would be traveling to the Cape, just like one of those gentlemen said in the movie, and around 5, 6 o'clock you cross the bridge, you go over the canal, and we would hear this just crazy show that was coming on, and singing out of tune.
Does she sing along to every
top
song?
of her lungs. And eventually just said, somebody has to tell this story. Somebody has to make a movie about this. So
it was you.
Decided to do that, yes.
What have you done before this?
Well, I've been a director now for almost 30 years, but I've done lots of documentaries, but also commercials, all kinds of things. I had a documentary called Song for New Orleans, which was a feature on the musicians coming back to New Orleans after Katrina. And have been working on some music documentaries, but also HIV/AIDS and other health issues in the third world, in the developing world. Wow. So it's a very wide diversity of things that we do.
It sounds like you've done some very serious topics.
Serious stuff.
What was this a real change for you to do something this sort of lighthearted, if you will?
Sure. I mean, it was, and this was one of those passion projects that you try to do. And that you want to do. So that's how that came about.
What do you think? I was thinking about this watching the second time I've seen this. What do you think the radio station represents to all of these people?
Well, I mean, I think it really does represent the thread of the community. So the station's important, but everybody, I think, craves a sense of community. And it's a small area. It's, off-season, there's just a few thousand people out at that part of the world. And so I think that it really does provide a thread. It provides an epicenter, if you will, for what the community can be. And so it transcends being a radio station.
And is that something you tried to capture? It seems like you did, yeah.
I don't know, did I capture that? I ask you.
Yeah, we ask you. No, I mean, and coming from radio, I can so appreciate this. And the idea that nowadays with satellite and corporate and all of that, even National Public Radio that we're a member of has a bit of that. But we strive to be part of the community. And that word is becoming more and more important to, I think, any local radio station, be you public or commercial or whatever.
Correct, yeah, absolutely.
And you think that they were pioneers in this and have been?
They have been. I mean, there are community radio stations throughout the country. In fact, we were in St. Louis, and they showed this at the community radio station there in a major metropolitan area. Wow. So there are these gems of stations that can be in places with a few thousand people, like Provincetown, and metropolitan areas with millions of people. And they reflect the communities that they're in. So to your point, it is real people doing that and being part of the community.
And pioneering in many ways. I mean, this radio station has such a reputation. It's becoming worldwide known now, right?
Right, and that's, I think, the other part for me of the film is that, Chuck Cole makes the point that people like a sense of community, whether it's their local or somebody else's local. And with the web, with streaming, that whole notion of what makes a community has changed. And I think that's that's an important part of the film, is that they do have listeners in Mexico City and in Japan and in Berlin, Germany. So,
I love was it Maddie Dredd who said that we have the ability to be offensive.
We have the right to be offensive.
We have the right to be offensive. Yeah. And to play things people may not like.
That's right. And every one of these people, I heard somebody ask a question up there before I came down, they're all programming those shows. Nobody's telling them what to play.
Yeah.
So if you're passionate about chanting music or you're passionate about Zydeco, you're bringing your music to it. Nobody's giving you a playlist. You're creating that playlist.
Yeah. There's a lot of freedom to that. We have that at our radio station too, and there's a lot of freedom to that.
Yeah.
And that's very rare nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time it's algorithms now, focus groups, or how most music gets
And
gets
you walk
programmed.
in and you hit the computer and it plays, it has a playlist and it just plays. And then you stop it and you have talk sets where you can feel free to talk, and then you start it again and it plays. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and this is, what they're doing is kind of old. It harkens back to old-time radio in a way, but it's happening. So
And still?
happening today.
Yeah. Now, some tragic news, some sad news, right? About one of the...
Yes, so this being a community, we made the film over the course of 3.5 years.
When did you finish it? Was it just last year?
We finished it
2 years ago?
about a year ago. But Howard Weiner, who you met, Cafe Classical, and he tells that wonderful story about being mistaken for Lady Di. He recently passed away about a month and a half ago. So, it's one of those things. I mean, it's of the community, by the community, and that's the rhythm of life.
I want to try some of the neo-pagan finger
Finger
food.
food.
Man, he still runs that restaurant too?
Oh, yeah.
What is that restaurant called?
It's called Terra Luna.
Oh.
It's seasonal, so if you go out there right now, it's shut. But
Well, this
between
community is
May and-
very similar to ours here, right? I mean, with the,
Sure.
summertime.
No, absolutely. And that was actually, it's a thrill to be here, and also because there are so many analogies between the outermost part of Massachusetts, where I'm from, and the outermost part of New York State, where you are. It was really cool.
Your first time here in the East End, though?
Yeah, I had never been any further than about Islip. My loss. But today went out to Montauk, so I've done the whole thing now.
Do we have any questions?
Yes, questions.
Please, go ahead.
Arlene.
Oh, I was just curious, how did you end up raising $60,000 when you started out with $329?
In the bottle.
In the jar, right? It took 140 days, so it was about a 6-month process before they finally, got the new antenna, and they had some big donors. There's some people in the community who really, really love the station and who will give in the thousands. So they were able to do that, and they did an online appeal. They did an online appeal as well, and they finally did. The community though came together and raised that kind of money, which.
And why do you think that is?
Well, I think, it's such a part of the community, and people love that station. And when you hear, if you ever tune into it streaming live, you'll hear they're always saying who the sustaining members are. And you'll hear addresses from all over the place. They're not just from Cape Cod. You'll hear addresses from all over New England and people in Denver. I've heard people from Kansas City. So they really do have a following, and I think it's important to people all over.
Mm. And Lady Di, obviously a star, but who else is? How do they measure who listens, or does that even matter?
It's funny you asked that because I'd asked that in the course of filming, and they have somewhat of an idea based on the amount of streams and based on sort of the pickup that they get. But at any given time, there could be 25,000 people listening to that station, which is actually impressive when you think about it.
Not bad. Yeah. And any
There'll be more, though. Everybody here will be listening.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yes, I wondered,
Zoe.
people you have on the air, and how do they keep renewing those, or how do they fill the vacancies? Do they have more people than they can use, or are they struggling to find people? Or?
Sure. So there are about 65 volunteer DJs because they're on 24/7. They also have a feed from Pacifica Radio. So they're not always somebody live in the studio, but they're on all the time. And so those 65 slots are everywhere from the graveyard shift at 2 in the morning to the prime times, and they do retain people a lot. But there is a little bit of a waiting list, but right now they're actually, unfortunately, looking for somebody to do classical in the prime time. But they will train people, and they will get you on the air.
Are you interested, Zoe?
If you're interested. Any volunteers?
She hired me in
Ah.
my first radio gig out here on the east end of Long Island.
She's very intelligent, I could tell.
Another question? Yeah. Dawn? Hello, Dawn Watson. Oh my gosh.
It's Don Watson.
It's Dawn Watson.
Nice to meet you. Nice to see you, Bonnie. Nice to meet you, Al. I talked to you
Yes.
via email.
Yes.
For preview. A storytelling question. When did you decide to focus on the characters behind the voices? Was this something you decided from the beginning, or did it unfold?
No, it was always the idea. In fact, going into this film, it's different than, say, a Katrina film, where you understand, okay, there's been this big storm. There's a natural arc to that. There's been this catastrophic storm. People have dispersed. Now they're coming back. Now they're reclaiming. Now, the payoff is that they're back and the scene is back. Here, you don't really know where you're going. So it's all about the characters. It really starts from the characters. And for me, it was always, I became a fan of the station. Lady Di was the gateway drug. But then I started to listen to all the other shows and realized these are very colorful people who are very passionate. So it started totally from the character place. And in fact, the antenna going down only happened about a year into filming. So we had no idea.
So you didn't plan that?
I didn't know. People have said that. They think it's a conspiracy because we needed a dramatic conflict, right? We needed something to overcome. And that just happened. We got lucky. They didn't get lucky.
Oh, my God. And one more, yeah?
I'm curious, have you shown the film to both big city audiences and small town audiences, and has there been a difference in the responses from those people?
Sure. Well, our first festival was the Provincetown International Film Festival, where in 2 showings we had about 350 total people seeing it, which was, hometown crowd. And that I thought could be a bit skewed because people knew people in the community, and is that really a true test? A couple of weeks ago, we were in the St. Louis International Film Festival, and then the next day in Kansas City for the Kansas International Film Festival. And I was really surprised at how a lot of the same jokes, even some of the local stuff like, I'm a lady from Chestnut Hill, it actually played well in the Midwest, as far from, we're in Kansas at this point, right? So, it is taken differently, but it was very interesting how people did appreciate it in the big city and way west of the Mississippi.
And where do you hope to go with this eventually?
Well, we were just rejected by Sundance. So.
Go to Slam Dance.
We'll go to Slam Dance. We're actually going to Idlewild, which is in Southern California, which we're very excited about. And I think very soon we're really looking to go into distribution because we've been out now almost a year. And
So are you now on the lookout for another radio documentary that you might do? 'Cause I can suggest one.
yeah, there's this
And we
woman
got
named
stories
Bonnie.
to tell. Let me tell you. Oh my God. No, this was just great. Did you all enjoy it? Yeah.
Thank you.
Nicely done. Thank you,
you.
Alan. Congratulations.
A pleasure.
Thank you. Take care. Outermost Radio.
Kisses.
Mwah.